Okay, so we're live once again with Draw with Dove. Since it is March still, we'll be doing another magical March drawing. I hate how close my phone has to be, so I can't get my full book in here. I'll try and be a little bit better at, making sure have my page that I'm actually working on in the camera. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all there is to say about that. So I'll just get right into it. Yeah. It's very convenient to have in front of me something that shows me what I'm looking at, what you guys can see. So I can try and be sure that I'm showing you guys what I'm actually doing. Yeah, so it's daylight savings today, which I don't know about you guys, but it throws me way off, which is weird because this is something my sister pointed out. It doesn't really make sense because if you think about it, sometimes you'll wake up an hour earlier or an hour later, or stay up an hour later, or go to bed an hour earlier, just regularly. But for some reason, when it's daylight savings, it makes you feel so ridiculously tired. It must be psychological. Yeah, I know it's very quiet. Yeah, that is because I forgot to put on any music. But also, unlike Instagram, YouTube doesn't really like it if you use a lot of music, and I haven't gone through the whole figuring out what is copyrighted and non-copyrighted music, so I need to do that. So that's on a list of things for me to do. So what I'm drawing today is I want to say it's pronounced Enfield, but I could be completely wrong. Basically, it's a griffin, but if instead of a lion eagle, it was a fox eagle. Or maybe it's a wolf eagle. I think it's a fox eagle. Yeah, that sounds right. So it's just like it's a little different. Kind of the same, little different, kind of fun. One of the lesser known beasts and creatures, so it's kind of fun. But also, I really love foxes, foxin, fox eye. I don't know. There's this book that my sister got a while ago. It's actually really funny. It's this, what is it, like I don't even know what to call it. It's just basically this really funny chick. She works in, what is it, human relations or public relations or something. And she just talks about her life. And I can't remember for some reason what that's called. I want to say autobiography. Maybe that's right. Anyway, my sister's going to tell me about it later and make fun of me for being an idiot and not remembering. But she's really funny. She talks about fox as in it, and she calls them foxen if there's more than one. So I'm kind of a big fan of that. I like that idea. They are foxen. I don't know if I want that leg to be longer, also less. Yeah, that looks more natural. This looks very stiff. I don't like it. I don't really draw a lot of animals, so and when I do, I draw mostly like monsters, not actual living animals. So something that like this, sorry, my hair in the way, actually kind of looks like a fox. Sometimes it takes me a couple tries. Anyways. Yeah. And that's supposed to have wings connected to its legs. Probably. I know a lot of this is kind of me just like muttering to myself about what I'm doing. I really wish I could do something about that, but that's just how I draw. I actually do. I mutter to myself the whole time. You know how some people they just make faces when they're concentrating? Me, I talk to myself. So that's what I do. Why are you so obsessed with me? That, and for anyone who can actually see those comments, that is my sister, Almond. I'm obsessed with you because of your gorgeous hair. This is something for anybody who actually knows my sister Almond. They will recognize her hair or her face in a lot of my artwork. This is completely unintentional. So often I'll be like, wow, I drew this really great picture, and then I'll look at it and I'll just be like, that's my sister. That's I do also make faces. Yeah, that's true. I do make faces. But mostly it's disgusted faces. I don't know why, that's just my default face. But yeah, I accidentally draw almond all the time. All the time. I remember this one time I was trying to draw, I don't remember what it was, but it was this a picture of a specific woman. So I was looking at a reference and trying to like actually draw her. And then I was like, okay, it looks so good. It looks just like her. And then I like kind of stepped away for a minute and I was like, no, that's Almond. It's not even who I was trying to draw. That's my sister. Okay. Oh well. Best to accept what we are. And apparently I'm obsessed with my sister. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I spend a lot of time looking at her. And we did share a room growing up, so. I don't know why, but this is making me think more of a cat right now. Maybe it's the pose. Okay, well, I mean, like, I got a general idea. This leg is like way too angled. So it's this one. Okay. Okay. Now to actually try and make some sense. This face is way too round. Make some sense out of this mysterious shapes. Cat hybrid. I mean, what is a fox other than a cat dog hybrid? Though, like, when I look at a fox, I feel like it's part cat. There's just something about their body shape. I think it's because they're so lanky. Just ginger cat dogs. This is a cat dog bird hybrid. Of course, all of the. That way you don't have to decide what kind of pet you want. You can just have them all in one. There, you know, there's like, should have had one more light over there. I think that's what I'm going to do next time. I'm still trying to figure out how to keep the shadows from being too heavy on the paper while I'm down here. See, it's like really shadow heavy right here. Sorry about that. I wanted to eliminate this like random shadow that was being cast right here on the book last time. But now it's just created like a really dark hand shadow. Ugh. I'll figure it out. One day I'll get the lighting just right and then I'll never change it again. Okay, I don't know if anybody else here remembers Ninetales from Pokemon. That's what I want this face to be. I want this face to be as beautiful as Ninetales' face. So majestic. Like, I'm still disappointed that Ninetales isn't real. Ugh, yeah, right? Like, if I could have the beauty level of Ninetales on myself, I don't think I'd ever stop looking in the mirror, honestly, because I'd just be like, wow, I am so beautiful. I look like a nine-tailed fox. I mean, I guess that is the point, though. Like, 'cause it's the legend of the nine-tailed fox and all. But still, whoever came up with that design, because I don't know who it was, but whoever did, they nailed it. They did a great job. That one and Persian. Nine tails, Persian, Ponyta, more so than Rapidash. I mean, Rapidash was cool, but Rapidash always looked angry to me, personally. Oh, and then Vaporeon. Oh my gosh. And Flareon. Didn't like Jolteon. Not a fan. Which I realize now most of those are fox Pokemon. Um, yeah, pretty much if there was a Pokemon that was a fox, I would probably like it. I think I just like foxes. Just a fan. The power of Pikachu. But not any Pikachu. The main character Pikachu. That guy. Because he had the power of friendship. Or whatever the heck it was. I don't really know. I'm not 100% sure what made him better than all the other Pokemon. For being honest, I was always a little fuzzy on that. But he was. He was better than all the other Pokemon. No one could beat him. And he refused to ever level up. Evolve. Boom. That's it. Wow. That seems like a word I definitely should have remembered. So right now I'm just creating like blocks of where the hair will be. Because if I start by making them like spiky like hair, sometimes I get carried away and then I make it too fluffy or not fluffy enough. So I'm just kind of detailing the shape that I want, and then I'll go through and actually add the texture. So right now he kind of looks weird and blocky. Don't worry about that. It's a process. It's a flawed process, but it is a process. Ugh. You know, it's funny. I don't think I used to rotate my paper quite so much as I do now when I was younger. But since I've started working with the digital art sometimes, I think I um I have started rotating my paper more. And I think that is because I want to be the very best and no one. Oh, seriously? Me and my sister used to know that entire song, including the rap part at the end. Anyway, because with digital art, you are flipping your canvas around all the time and zooming in and out, right? So it's just I've found myself even when I'm doing traditional art, like I'm basically just spinning my book around the whole time I'm trying, which I didn't used to do so much. I used to actually just like move my hand around. Now, no, I I don't know if it's better or worse. I think it's just different. I will admit the most embarrassing thing to have happened though is to try and Zoom on actual paper. Only done that a couple times so far, never in public or on a live stream, which is good. I'm not saying that it's never going to happen though. It very well could and probably will. And I fully expect my sister to never let me live the day that I did that down. Or like when you try to like, because I use Procreate on my tablet, so like tap to undo or redo. Yeah, all those short cuts. I will admit it's a little annoying when you're sketching in a sketchbook when you can't. Because if you draw something, for example, I spent all that time on the head, but then if I'm drawing something and I'm like, oh no, the head is too big or too small, if I want to change it, I have to erase the whole thing and redo it again. Whereas on digital art, you can just resize it. So that is more convenient, I will admit. But also, I think having that convenience and like that safety net forces you to not approximate quite so much because, like, you can resize it. So, like, you're not as worried about it because you're like, oh, I can fix it later if it's not right. I think I don't care as much if I'm doing digital art about proportions in a sketch anyway. Whereas in traditional art, I'm like, if I mess this up, there's no going back. So I care a lot more. And I'm a lot more. But pros and cons. Either way, I think. It's just like how, like, if you're working with a pencil, you can erase something, so you're more willing to take chances. Whereas if you're just going right pen, ink on a piece of paper, you're probably going to think twice before you make any line. You're not just going to be like, "Yep, this is what I want to do." I mean, actually, you might do that. I don't know. I don't know everybody. I don't know everybody's style. They might do that. But for myself, I would not be quite so bold with my strokes. Then again, I look on Instagram and I see all sorts of people just going right in there with ink and then just like photograph quality artwork done with a ballpoint pen. And I'm like, you don't even have like a guideline. How did you know where to start? Pretty sure it's sorcery, but whatever. Those people, they blow my mind. They're on another level altogether. Blows my mind. Yeah, so I wanted to get some of the wing in here before I did the actual foot because obviously some of it's covered here, so it would interfere. Yeah, freaking hair is in the way. Sorry, usually I put the lens of the camera on the farther side because I just use my phone. So I usually put it on the farther side, but I accidentally put it on the side closer to me, so my hair is accidentally getting in the frame. Like I said, daylight savings, not for me. This actually totally does look like a Pokemon. You just need to color it like pink or blue, bright yellow, maybe red or something. Red and orange. Give it a weird name. It's Pokemon. I think that part of the feather doesn't make sense because this leg is here, here. Yeah, okay. What kind of wings are these? I don't know what they would look like unfolded. No idea. Um, See, those are all things that, in the case of me designing some sort of creature, I would think about after I do the initial sketch. I do like a sketch and then I'd be like, okay, now let's think about this more practically. This is an initial sketch, so the practicalities of things like what kind of wing is that? Is that actually practical? What would it look like if it was all stretched out? What kind of feathers should it have? Um, that doesn't really come into play very much at this moment, but when I am actually like fully designing a character for or creature for something, I do actually consider all of that. So, yeah, I know it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense currently, but if this was going to become like a final piece of artwork or something that I was going to use in like world building or some sort of story or comic or something, I would worry about that after the initial sketch. Usually, creatures aren't decided on the first sketch or two. I mean, sometimes they are. Like, sometimes I draw one and I'm just like, yep, that's it. I love it. I wouldn't change a thing. And then other times I'm like, nope, that looks really dumb. Gotta completely redo that. So it really just depends. But I do like to take into account like physics and science and stuff, even with mystical or magical or fantasy or whatever you want to call them creatures. I mean, granted, some of it has to be imaginary science, like science that you make up, but you can still use like the basis of actual science for that. Like for example, a fairy. Obviously, a fairy's existence has certain limitations by the physical world that we know that would make them very limited. So if you want a fairy to be more interesting, you just have to like kind of make up new laws that still follow the foundation of the laws that we know. So in that way, I guess it's kind of like science fiction, right? Because they make up science that we don't have yet for a spaceship, for example, like the proton phaser or whatever. We don't even have that. What is that? Or warp engines. That's not a thing. But it's a thing, and they make it a thing. And so in that world and in that science, the bounds of that world, it works because that's how it is. So I don't know. I think it's just because I'm too nerdy, and I probably care a lot too much about things being rational and explainable and not just like just because. Hate that answer. It's the worst answer ever. I like thinking this is the way it is because this and this and this, you know? So everything I put into something, whether it be a fantasy or a science fiction, it's real. It could be in the future. I mean, think about it. Cell phones, touch screens, the internet. We're living in a sci-fi. For real. Hoverboards. Apparently, there's cars now that actually have wheels like they did in iRobot. Like they're full circular, like sphere wheels, so it can move like all the directions. Pretty cool. There's only like one prototype, but still, it exists. So, cars drive themselves. So, I mean, like, I think I'm just a weird person, but whatever. And I like to think, you know, the way science is so much of it is so flawed. Like, for example, let's talk about like Stephen Hawking. He's like the smartest person in a while. And he spent how many years proving one thing? So he spent half of his life proving something. And he spent the whole second half of his life disproving what he himself proved. The fact that that's even possible tells me that there's some things that, you know, just we don't get it yet. And to me, that's kind of like what legends and folklore are like. Back before people had the concept of what science is and what we knew science to be, people explained things in rational ways they could understand, like legends and folklore. Because people would get, like, for example, they would go into the ocean, they get sucked out by the tide, and they would disappear. They didn't understand what tides were and what a back tide was and a rip tide, and they didn't understand those things because they didn't have the knowledge to be able to understand it. So they made up all sorts of different stories about like mermaids or kelpies or sea, um, yeah, sealies or like all sorts of things to explain why people would walk into the ocean and just disappear and never be found. Or if they were found, they were drowned because they didn't understand what a riptide was. We now know what a riptide is. So we know it's not all of these things. So, in a way, legends and folklore is just like, the science, like pre science. It's how people explained things before they had scientific methods to explain them. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's just my opinion on it. A lot of people take issue with it because they're like, fantasy isn't science. And I'm like, okay, but neither is Doctor Who. Doctor Who isn't science either, technically. But, you still call it science fiction. What is science other than us trying to find a way to explain the world around us? And that's exactly what legends and folklore were. People just trying to explain the world around them. Anyway, I digress into my own philosophies and opinions that are completely irrelevant and have absolutely no impact on anybody but myself. Reality. Honestly, I wish Doctor Who was reality. I have watched that, and I think being a companion of the Doctor, even for like a good year, would be like it'd be a good time. Like sign me up. It's high risk for sure, but I'd say high reward as well. So I would be willing. I really need more coffee. Pretty sure my caffeine intake is probably unhealthy. My fiance would totally jump on board with that if he ever watched any of these things, but for some reason he never remembers when I'm doing them. He's a workaholic. What you gonna do? Trying to think of like ways I can add feathers into this guy, like more than just on his wings, because I feel like he should have more than just wing feathers. It feels like too isolated, like unnatural, you know? Thinking maybe like putting some feathers on the back feet. Like I did some here on like the back feet, and I'm thinking maybe adding some into the tail somehow. Granted, it might be difficult to show that they're there with just the pencil, but in my mind, I'll know they're there. And someday when I look at this, like 5 years from now, and I'm like, wow, is that what I drew like? Because for some reason, that's always the way. No matter how good you think you are at drawing, you can be like, this is the best thing I ever drew. And then a couple years later, you'll look at it and you'll be like, what the heck was I doing? Like, I have these drawings from, I actually don't know when they're from. I want to say 2017 or 18. Anyway, I spent hours on them. Oh my God. I'd spend like days on a single drawing. And I look back at them and I'm like, yeah, like I put a lot of effort into this, but it's just like it's detailed. And some of the ideas are like really good, but the quality of proportions or understanding of how to use tools is just not there. Then you see these like 15-year-olds on the internet and you're just like, how are you so good? When I was 15, I was terrible. But also I didn't spend all my time drawing when I was 15. I was also playing video games a lot, so probably could have been more dedicated. Just hit the camera, sorry. There we go. Nice, see what I'm doing. Yeah, like, for example, back then, every single sketch in my sketchbook would be a fully rendered, inked, and usually colored sketch. Oh my gosh, it took forever. I should do like an old sketchbook tour one of these days. So you guys can see it. A lot of them are not great, but some of them actually, like, even though the perspective is wonky and the shadows are not great, like I still like them. Actually, what I'm gonna do to kind of not distract, I'm gonna leave this background stuff here, like this and this. I'm gonna leave it a lot lighter than this stuff in the foreground. This was less distracting. So I'm still gonna like add some details to it. Because like I don't want it to look unfinished. So like I'll just leave it like that. I'll give this more of a chance to become the main focal point. Now this will be interesting. I'm trying to think of how to put feathers into the tail here. And I mean, like, I could just like throw some triangles in there and be like, yeah, it's feathers, but like I kind of want to make it noticeable to me that they're feathers, not just clumps of hair. So maybe I should like do them a little bit shaded, do all the feathers like slightly shaded. So they're like a different texture. Because like obviously I can look at that and be like, okay, yeah, that's a different texture than the rest of the body. That doesn't mean like if I look at this a couple years from now, I'm gonna actually remember what exactly I was trying to get at. So to help with that, what I think I'm gonna do is, no, is this, no, it's fine. Not in the camera. I don't know if you guys can hear the movement upstairs. That is just my parents, if you can. I'm in a basement right now, so if you can hear like noises, don't worry about it. It's nothing weird or suspicious. It's just people walking around living their best life. Okay, yeah. So, because I do believe if I look at this and I look at it later, I don't think I'm going to actually know what's going on. I am going to just quickly shade in these feathers. Basically, this is just a way of giving myself kind of a visual reminder. Thing is, if you're doing that much shading, you need to really be sure that you separate your silhouette, right? So like, gotta darken those lines, which we've talked about a couple times now, so I won't go on that whole rant again. Now, shading properly is very difficult with a mechanical pencil, but I like the mechanical pencil that I use because I can get really fine details with it. But to do shading like this properly, most people prefer actual drawing pencils because when you shade, you're supposed to like kind of ease onto the paper and come off kind of in like in a scooping motion so that you don't get any hard edges. With a mechanical pencil, you pretty much always get hard edges. So that's why a lot of sketching artists don't like mechanical pencils, especially really fine ones, because mine is like a 0.3. Very fine, very difficult not to get the harsh edges. But that's okay, I don't mind them being there. I'm not a graphite sketching artist. That's not my thing. So, does that mean they don't bother me? No, they do bother me a little bit, but whatever. It's not the end of the world. I still prefer the details I can get with my pencil. So, what you gonna do? I just want to say thank you to everybody that actually comes and watches these things live. I know a lot of people catch them later, and that is awesome too. But for the people who actually do come live and interact and engage, that's really awesome because I enjoy having something to help fill the space. Just sitting here talking to myself while I'm drawing, I think I probably get quite repetitive, mostly because, first of all, I'm focusing on what I'm doing. Second of all, I don't think I'm that interesting. I only have so many things to say, and over the course of an entire drawing, you run out of things to say when it's just a one-sided conversation. So I appreciate the support and the interaction. It really makes this entire thing more enjoyable. Like, I actually enjoy doing these streams and talking with you guys and sharing whatever I can think to share and coming up with what I'm gonna draw. I think the months that have like some sort of monthly challenge is good because it gives me some sort of direction. The months that don't, it's going to be interesting because I have no idea what I'm going to draw for those months. Yes, I can draw whatever I want, but that's a challenge in all its own because then I have to actually pick something. Whereas this, it kind of gives me like a limited options. Like, yeah, you have to pick something, but it has to be a creature. Or, yeah, you have to pick something, but it has to be a fairy. So it's like a little bit easier to pick. I'm shading this part upside down because I don't want to smudge all the shading I just did. I should have started shading over here, but I didn't think of it. It's really, that's all that happened there. In case anybody was wondering. Which you probably weren't, but, answered anyway. And I'm just going to darken up my edges. Yeah, so I mean, overall, this is nearly done. Just have a little bit of edge work to do, which is funny because that's also done in hair. I guess it's not actually that funny. I was just something that occurred to me. Oh my goodness. Sleep deprived. Brain, I guess it's not that sleep deprived, but still. Enough that it's getting weird. Like I said, I'm moving these two kind of background legs lighter to try and give a sense of depth. I do more of the shading that I've done in other ones, but because there's a lot of like fur detailing and stuff, I don't want it to get too complicated and lost. So I'll leave that out and just leave it with the feathers being in a different shade. Oops, just broke my lead. That is the thing about the small lead, it breaks very easily. There's like a certain amount that you can go. It's a fine line between an allowable amount of pressure and how long, like how much of the lead you have out. When I first started using this pencil, I was breaking lead so much. I went through so much just because I was breaking it all the time. But now it doesn't happen that often. Unless I'm working on like really rough paper, then I find this pencil isn't that good because it just, first of all, it eats up so much of the pencil. Second of all, it can sometimes grip the lead and just snap it. Yeah, so. Okay, so here it is. Perfect. It's fully in there. All done. The magical march. My fox bird thing.